We are both South African born. And made Aliyah, immigrating to Israel with our 4 school-going children in 1979. After working hard to establish ourselves in the business world in Israel, we made our decision to visit Lithuania and the town of my ancestors. We had always been deeply involved in communal activities in our hometown of Cape Town, and we were 20 years later ready to embark on a new journey, a journey which would take us on a path of involvement and commitment to honoring memory and education.
This is the story of how we discovered the talent of young Lithuanian artists, the impact these students made on us, and the desire to share what we have learned with you. Abel and I will describe how, during these years, we came to realize the opportunity to express our interest in honoring the memory of the victims of the Shoah and in helping to make local Lithuanian children aware of what had happened to half the population of their town during the Second World War, because they were Jews. Abel and I, for this presentation, focused on how we developed an interest in and a passion for encouraging pupils in high school through the medium of the arts to understand the Holocaust. I want to mention that those people you will see fleetingly on the screen are all very special to us and with whom we have a close relationship. They are an integral part of the journey that enabled us to bring this message to you today. Please remember that none of the Lithuanian artists or performers whose work that you will soon see is Jewish.
Before presenting you with an entree into the soul of the young high and middle school students through their art, guided by their dedicated teachers, I will describe our background and how we, Glenda and I, came to be the bearers of this revelation of talent. The first sighting of the town of my forebears. In 1998, Glenda and I journeyed to Lithuania for the first time. Our interest was to visit my ancestral village and, if possible, to learn about my Levitt family and their fate in the Holocaust, also known in Hebrew as the Shoah. My father Louis traveled from South Africa to visit his family in his hometown in 1938. Of all my family in Plungyan, there were no survivors. Our contact was with Jacobus Bunker, the 75-year-old last Jew in the town of Plunga, Plungyan in Yiddish. Jacobus Bunker passed away in 2014 at the age of 91. Jacobus, or Yossel, returned a war hero after World War II and discovered that the entire Jewish community of his town had been murdered in July 1941 by the Nazis and the local Lithuanian collaborators. Yossel Bunker was a recorder and preserver of the history of the Jews of his town. He was also a renowned folk artist who carved Jewish characters of bygone days. His figures of villagers of the shtetl, captured by the very essence of family life. He also carved biblical characters such as Moshe, Moses, and the Ten Commandments. Jacobus Bunker sculptured giant memorials out of wood as sentinels to honor the memory of the Jews in the forest of Kausanai, Kaushan in Yiddish, on the outskirts of the town. At the entrance to the mass graves is his homage to a family of dear friends who were murdered. Greeting us is this awesome sculpture. A close-up of the chained man. A woman with hands covering the face. A pregnant woman covers her face in horror at the fate that awaits her. A man's overwhelming desperation of not being able to protect his family. Carved at the base of this towering carving is the word "why." A close-up with the unanswerable question of why. A scene in the forest of Kausanai with the memorial wall of 1,800 bricks from the old demolished synagogue, a brick for each Jew murdered. On the wall are the known names of 1,200 of the victims who lie in these mass graves. In 2011, a ceremony was held with the unveiling of the Wall of Names. This was the first time in Lithuania that names of Lithuanian Jews were displayed on the site of the killings, a communal tombstone honoring their memory. We befriended Eugenius, the son of Jacobus, a journalist who loyally and tirelessly supported his father's work and has done a massive job of researching and recording what had happened in small mass graves in the surrounding areas. One example is Mishashechai, where 80 young Jews from Plungyan were murdered. This small mass grave was renovated by Eugenius in 2008. After our first visit in 1998, we returned to Lithuania in 2001 with a group of 43, all descendants or spouses of a Levitt couple, tracing their roots back to Plungyan in the mid-1800s. Our trip culminated in attending the annual memorial ceremony in July at the mass graves in the forest where the killing took place in July 1941. One of the speakers at the service was a high school teacher, Danuta Serapanieni. She made a powerful impression on us with her dignity, empathy, and insightfulness. The following year, we discovered that she had been selected with a group of Lithuanian teachers to attend a course of Holocaust teaching at Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. We met with Danuta there and learned from her that her dream was to have her own place in the high school where she could house her material and meet with students. This is a class of Jewish high school girls before 1940. Danuta was determined to educate her Lithuanian students about the way of life of the Jews of their town, who had lived there for hundreds of years, until the time when the terrible murder took place. It is 1939, and a festive celebration is taking place in Vitauta Street. Aside from the church at the far end of the street, all the houses that you see were occupied by Jews. In 2001, at the end of the ceremony, Jossels Bunker spoke to me about his concern for preserving the graves from the ever-encroaching forest. He envisioned the mass graves being covered with a permanent protective covering. We agreed to help, and after we succeeded in collecting the necessary funds from our family and friends, we left the project to be executed in Eugenius's very capable hands. At our insistence, at the meeting at Yad Vashem, the modest Danuta explained her requirements, installing windows, repairing the roof and ceiling, furniture, TV, computer, all for the two small interconnecting rooms that the sympathetic headmaster, Iosas Milachius, offered her for her use. We were delighted to be able to help with all her needs, and thus, together with Danuta, we helped to create the Tolerance Center at the Saulus Gymnasium in Plunga. We have been told that this was the first Tolerance Center in Lithuania. Today, there are about 150 tolerance education centers throughout Lithuania in intermediate and high schools. Each year, we would engage with high school goers during their English class. Under the auspices of the Foreign Ministry of Lithuania, it was Ronaldas Račinskas who conceived the idea of establishing tolerance centers in schools in Lithuania. Ronaldas's deputy is Ingrida Vilkienė, director and project manager. Among her numerous tasks, she arranges seminars for Lithuanian teachers for the selection of candidates for attending training courses at Yad Vashem. She is their coordinator and group leader to Israel. She is constantly creating and supporting tolerance centers throughout Lithuania. We have formed a particularly close friendship with the wonderful and passionate Ingrida. In 2014, we attended the 10th anniversary of the establishment of the Tolerance Center and presented each participating student and teacher with a commemorative medal on the occasion. Tolerance is engraved in Lithuanian, English, and Hebrew. Danuta retired in 2014, and her work at the Tolerance Center continues under the leadership of her longtime deputy, Jolanta. Once again, there is a person of enthusiasm and dedication at the head of the Tolerance Enterprise, Jolanta Mazukne. Algamantas, the new principal of the school, is very sympathetic to the activities of the Tolerance Center. He has been deeply affected by the seminar that he attended at Yad Vashem a few years ago. In fact, he told us that after the winter, when it came to spring and his students are taken to the mass graves, he told his staff that he was going to participate in the cleanup and would welcome any volunteers to join him. In 2005, I was reading the book Home by the famous author and Oscar winner Ronald Harwood. Ronnie Horwitz, as I knew him, was my old school friend. We were together from grade 1 to our final school year, and although we were good friends, to my surprise, I discovered from his book that his father, like mine, had been born in Plungyan. We were not aware of our father's backgrounds. Ronald had recently won an Oscar as the screenwriter for the Holocaust classic film, The Pianist. I wrote to him suggesting that he might want to visit Lithuania. Ronnie answered, and a short while later, we spent a week together with Ronnie and his wife Natasha in Lithuania, the highlight being his visit to Plunga. Ronnie was deeply moved by this experience, aware that his father as a young boy had left Plungyan, fleeing poverty, and that he was returning as a celebrity. Ronnie addressed the school and kept both teachers and students entranced with his charm and charisma as he described the challenges of becoming a writer and gave inspiration and encouragement to all those students with a love of writing. We were welcomed by the mayor, very aware that he was hosting the first Oscar winner to visit Lithuania. Mr. Mayor, he said, I know you have budget difficulties, but don't ever cut back on funding for cultural activities in your town. This will be to the detriment of the quality of life in your society. It was this comment that triggered our idea to create an annual art competition in the school, and perhaps invite schools from the surrounding areas to participate. Glenda and I decided to call it the Ronald Harwood Art Competition. In May of each year, we have attended the prize giving of the competition. This cannot take place without Eugenius, the journalist son of the late Jacobus Bunker, the last Jew of Plungyan. He is the tireless supporter of all projects pertaining to Holocaust memory. Representations of all the arts are embraced into the competition: creative writing, music, drama, dance, handcrafts and paintings. The subject, the Holocaust.
A visiting school from Kaunas after their moving, powerful performance. The music teacher, Elena, as she accompanies her student with a beautiful Israeli song, Lalechet Shevi Achareach, which means to be captivated by you. Elena searched and found a Hebrew songbook with Russian translation. Gabriela takes us by surprise as she, with her beautiful voice, sings a song that we love in perfect Hebrew. Greta is one of the essayists. The title of her essay, The Monologue in a Little Dark Room, starts with the line, I am here. Maybe no one sees me, but I am here. She calls on God to explain the suffering and the reason for this punishment. She ends her essay with, but the fear I live all my life, I think is worse than death. Her title, I Will Hug You Once Again, implies hope. However, Agnes' writing is filled with graphic details of the horror of being in a concentration camp. The evil has made a profound impact on her. Gintalsis, a passionate student of history, delivered a moving story. Today, he's a young history teacher. The gorgeous singer Monica and her guitarist Gidre entertain prospective tolerance teachers at a seminar in Plunga, a beautiful interlude. Monica, with her golden voice, sings Shalechet, Autumn Loneliness, which she taught herself to sing in impeccable Hebrew by listening to it over and over. The song ends with the words, my soul is slowly fading, outside leaves are falling. This group of students, complete with their musical and poetic performance, with a display of lit memorial candles. Students from the nearby town of Seda performing the bottle balancing dance, usually performed at a traditional Jewish wedding. A delightful display of folk dancing. A group of violinists, Lema, Yona, Ilya, Mikolas, Vaita, and Barbara, playing the beautiful piece Dance, Dance. I Want to Fly Like a Butterfly. The title of this play reveals the poignancy of this dramatic performance. Betty's story is a true story written by her sister Masha Tega, who emigrated from Lithuania and moved to America. It's about Betty in the early 1900s. Betty as a young girl meets Moshe Levitt, Abel's great uncle from Plunyan. Moshe Leib arrives from the village of Plunyan to the sophisticated city of Riga to meet and court Betty. He spends Friday evening Shabbat dinner with Betty and her family. A wedding is arranged. The whole story is filled with gossip, pathos, and humor. The wedding celebration takes place. The story ends with the words, "A black cloud arrives, Hitler's regime," expressing the drama of the theme through the effective technique of combining actors with shadow images. The suitcases in the story are representing the endless attempt to flee, but inevitably finding nowhere to go. This play, by a drama club entry from a visiting school, is a rare display of the recognition of local Lithuanian participation in the persecution and murder of their fellow citizens who were Jews. Here we see two Nazis discussing how to deal with the Jews as two kneeling girls await their unknown fate. In this scene, the class displays their acceptance of the Nazi ideology, and they single out a Jewish classmate to torment. Note the armbands worn by some of the students. They are not the Nazi armbands. They are white armbands, the symbol worn by local Lithuanian collaborators of the Nazis. They are preparing to carry out their role as murderers of the kneeling Jewish girls in the class. You can just get a glimpse of the yellow star worn by the girls. This is a brave depiction by young students, acknowledging the complicity of local Lithuanians in the persecution and murder of the Jews. The drama teacher has taught the disturbing truth of Lithuanian participation. This play is about poor children in Vilna who are educated by a dedicated teacher and what happens to the students. In the story, one of the fathers of a student was passionate in his love of theatre. Gurevich, whose nickname was Bomba, had a dream to find money to educate his son to become a doctor. A Jubilee concert is organized by a friend, Franja, to raise funds for educating Bomba's son. The show itself was a wonderful spectacle of song and dance. Bomba achieves his goal. His son becomes a doctor, and for a short while the dream came true, until the Nazi invasion, and all were killed in the forest of Panarai, or Panar, near Vilnius. Having experienced a taste of the multiplicity of creativity by these young Lithuanians via their skills in music, writing, drama and dance, we move to the medium of art, which gives young Lithuanian students an opportunity to reveal not merely their wonderful talent, but their extraordinary creativity, insightfulness, originality in expressing their thoughts about a deeply traumatic subject. The title of each of the following works you are about to see is the artist's own words that we have translated. The Shadow of Oblivion. Albertus has portrayed the beautiful young people whose destiny is oblivion. The hand guides our eye to the damaged Magen David, Star of David, the symbol of the tragedy of oblivion that awaits them. A call to humanity for help. This powerful entry by Reda is an indictment against all those who refuse to hear a desperate cry for help. A nation's strength. In this beautifully painted oil, Deauville, the artist, expresses her belief that hope can be heralded out of tragedy. The Pianist. An oil pastel drawing inspired by Ronald Harwood's visit. The scene the artist has chosen depicts the pianist transcending the horror by his love of music, and the officer permits himself to allow his love of music to overcome his duty as a German. The most cruel act is to hurt children. The pathos of this sensitive work by Lema is almost tangible. Transformation of a people. A young student Evita's innovative portrayal of the transition from normality to horror. Freedom of decision. This is a visually provocative depiction of an immaculate, expressionless perpetrator of evil, with the freedom to decide who may live and who may die. It's in his hands. The approaching of loss. In this beautiful, masterfully composed family scene, Sylvia draws us into the heartache of their inevitable, terrible future. The star is our destiny. Flowing waters of blood scored deep in memory, because there is nothing in the world worse than indifference. Reading the translation of the artist's words captures the Sabbath dinner. This heartbreaking, deeply moving scene by a 14-year-old Agner shows a family with Jewish symbols, the menorah, wine glass, challah, the traditional Sabbath bread, and interestingly, the artist recognizes the importance of books in the Jewish home and includes them in the background. Why are we being punished? Christina powerfully provides a message of total indifference to the suffering. The reader, absorbing the Nazi ideology as a Jew is sacrificed. Dehumanization has succeeded, and there is no answer to her question of why. The Scream of Souls. This is an eerily sophisticated painting of the horror of the Shoah by Monica. The torn newspapers in the background could represent the destruction of freedom and truth. A scream from the past to future. This moving, passionate, beautifully painted work of art by Ingrida seems to desperately reach for the hope of a future. The End of the Road. A conventional subject of a father and son, created in a minimalistic portrayal of just the hands. It makes the impact of this painting by Julia extremely dramatic and emotionally wrenching. There are a few words necessary when seeing this portrait by Gintara, aged 18. She calls it the reaction. A walk through the avenue. The irony of the title reflects Guidre's deep sensitivity to the abnormality of the philosophy of destroying a people. the colors and three-dimensional image which draws one into the glow is almost ethereal. Nobody can destroy. In Marius's own words, however much they try to remove flowers, they could not eliminate regrowth. His is a highly original, skillfully crafted work of twisted roots, transforming into a heart, the symbol of love, producing the buds that represent survival against all odds. The Sunset of Life by Guermantes, a powerful and dramatic painting of glorious colors of the sky as the sun descends into the horror of the ghetto. Memory blooming loneliness. Although a desperate atmosphere of loneliness permeates this painting, the title does not readily explain this highly complex, emotionally charged, wonderfully painted work by Caroline. The figure wears a crown of thorns made of barbed wire. The flowers in the foreground gradually disappear into the distant darkness. This tiny cross in the far horizon in Lithuanian culture represents a symbol of death. An original depiction by R. Simutaita, both in the medium of a woodcut and the unusual subject matter, which expresses the terrible trauma of separation. Mother and child. The rich and vibrant colors of Ingrida belie the tragedy of the story, and the eyes of the mother display the hopeless desperation of the inevitability of what awaits them. The birch trees of Kausenai stand as witnesses to remember. Young Laura's subtle and sensitive expression of recognition of the tragedy that took place in the forest. They don't want to leave. 16-year-old Vaitaita paints the menorah, a symbol of the Jews, as it changes from giving a glowing light to a disappearing darkness, fading away while the menorah weeps into a river of tears. Chance. Eyster displays a sensitive understanding. Hands reach out to each other, unable to connect. They are encompassed by chains in enforced separation and handcuffed by their identity as Jews. The Blossom of Souls, a most unusual and creative assemblage by Sandra, a barren tree with family photographs of pre-1941 families and surrounded by tombstones. A black mark on history, Bernadetta's extremely insightful, salient depiction of a Holocaust history. The cruelty pours out of an ink jar to form a stain onto the pages of history. Pain in the eyes of human nature. A deeply disturbing and unsettling painting by Heraldus. It manages to express all the horrors through colors, the wilting flowers, and the hopeless, tortured eyes peering at us. A nation suffering. It is extraordinary how, with a very stylized, cartoonist approach to art, at this young age, can express the tragedy of the Shoah so powerfully. Letting to Live and Blossom, an exquisitely painted flower by Gabriela, entangled and strangled as the scissor is poised to cut the Magen David and sever its survival. Beggars from the Ghetto. It's remarkable how Akvil has managed to convey utter despair and hopelessness. By concealing most of the adult figure, we feel the irrelevance and helplessness of the adult, whose role as a protector has been shattered and destroyed. All hatred is condemned, today and yesterday. Jonas connects all hatred based on irrational, bigoted theories and condemns all intolerance, past and present. This dynamic work is a combined effort of a group of students from the northern town of Birj in Yiddish, who participated in our competition for the first time. Impulse of thought. For the incarcerated victim, his only freedom left to him is his ability to think. Is Monica, the artist, conveying thoughts of escape or the resignation of unreachable freedom? The disappearance of hope. Gabriella's work is a sensitively and well-drawn portrait. He's a very ordinary-looking man, but as a Jew, he has been demonized, and his existence, like the painting, is fading away. The train to the inevitable. From the light of normality, Joanna's unstoppable train passes through on its journey to its destination of blackness. The inmates know the truth and are forced to participate as they hold and direct the train. Freedom by Vanute, magnificently painted illusion of a prison fence transforming into birds soaring onto freedom. A charming shtetl street scene. It depicts the normality of life before 1941. Serena, age 16, calls it Before. Humanity Devoured. This beautifully created work, in an exciting contemporary style by Reda, is infused with color and drama as the bleeding Magen David and the bullets surrounding the face emerge. March of the Souls. In this highly tortured and dramatic depiction, Monica reveals in the choice of the words in the title that however beaten down and dehumanized a person is, there exists a soul. This riveting, haunting, and wonderfully executed drawing by a 14-year-old Carolina is a stunning indictment of the attitude of denial of knowing. A Living Wall of Tears by Christina. This visual image, the last of our artworks being shown, conveys and represents all the artistry, creativity of thought, originality, and sensitivity of this collection.
The judges having to make the difficult decision of selecting prize winners. One of the students, Sandra, handing in her work, the ensemblage, to Danuta and Jolanta. A few of the prize winners, including Sandra, Albertas, Laura being presented with her certificate, the talented actress Aquil, who played the starring role of Betty, Monica being congratulated for her beautiful rendition of the song in Hebrew, Shalechet Autumn Loneliness. A young artist whose originality in art received a special mention. Congratulating dear Nora, the drama teacher of the Saulus High School in Plunga. Vaida, the art teacher from the school in Platalai, thrilled with her students' work receiving acknowledgement and awards. Jolanta Mazukne, observing and savoring with pride the talent of the students. Reflecting the pride and the culmination of months of dedicated work by the students and their teachers. celebrating the finale of the art competition of 2016. Students and teachers at the mass graves in the forest. To the creators of the organization of Tolerance Centers, to the school leadership, to the teachers, mentors, and active supporters, artists and performers, thank you to all who have participated in giving us a window to this extraordinary talent and insight of Lithuanian children.